and gentlemen, the Commissioner, the European Commission, has promised to you, number one, a good policy framework. We'll investigate in our panel this afternoon how good that policy framework is, where there may be scope for further improvement. The Commissioner has said that they will boost private investments. Well, it'll be good to see those coming. And last but not least, he's promised money. We always like it when they promise money. No? Is that true, ladies and gentlemen? We like that, that's good. He's talked about targeting public investment in R&D and innovation. And again, that's something we want to see delivery on. So, we've heard now from Secretary Chairman, we've heard from the relevant Commissioner. Let's move now to a global scope and a global view, moving on from the European one. It gives me great pleasure now to move on to our third step and to call to the stage, call to our floor at least, Gunther Pauli, entrepreneur, author of the Blue Economy, keynote speaker, and initiator of the Blue Economy, if I can say that. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. How are you all feeling? Fine? You need some coffee?
That's it.
Well, we'll talk about coffee later on, but I'm not here to talk about the paper industry because you're really the experts. I'm here to really take up this title, which I think is very well chosen, Sense the Future. It's sensing, it's tasting, it's getting a feeling of where are things going. And what I think is very important, the kind of work that I do, is that we're succeeding on moving forward. Can we move forward? Because it's at this moment not moving forward. There we are. And let me do it. Thank you. Let's go one back. And now one forward. Yes, there we are. Perfect. Thank you so much. We need a little bit of distress among the distressing moments, and this is the way things get on track. When I'm here and standing in front of you, I just want to make certain that whatever I'm saying, whatever we are presenting, is not the product of one individual. It's an inspiration of years and decades of people who I've got the privilege of working with. And so, first of all, a sense of humility that we are all a product of our peers. And I just want to pay tribute to those peers by showing their picture, and maybe there's some of the people you recognize, and maybe of them you don't recognize. Anyway, this is not a quiz. We're going on. But what I think is important is I'm leaving here tonight because tomorrow I'm presenting in Italy my new book called The Third Dimension. And I'm looking at the trends that are actually underpinning not the statistics, but the trends that are underpinning the movers and the shakers on the market. And I think that's important. We need to know who are the antennas, where are things changing beyond what we think is possible. I wrote this book in 2009, The Blue Economy. It's published in 43 languages. It's a book that has allowed me to crystallize the work that we have been doing around the world. Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. We've done more than 200 projects around the world, invested €5 billion and generated 3 million jobs. We've got a track record. So I'm going to speak from the guts of this track record and the science that we've been able to do, but asking you a very particular question. What do you get inspired by when you see a tree like that? Well, let me tell you what I'm inspired by. In a forest, there is no unemployment and no waste. Everyone has a job in a forest. No one is unemployed. Even the smallest saplings are contributing, and there's no creche, no kindergarten for them. What I think is very important when we look at who you are and what you represent, there's some amazing symbolisms behind it. I have the privilege of working since 1994 with about 3,000 scientists. We're science-driven. At the same time, I've been able to assemble about 1,000 entrepreneurs. What we want to do is create a bridge between the science and the entrepreneur. What's the use of science that stays in the labs, that are translated into beautiful reports? What we're needing is people to change the rules of the game. And that's what we're all about, transformation. And we need to go with value added. And I think one of the great advantages is that you, as an industry, you know that there's no value in just being a commodity. It's generating value added but I add a few words to it. With what you have. You're not going to create value with things that you don't have. You're going to focus, and that requires innovation. Actually, the first promise of the Commissioner was funding for innovation, not just funding. He wants to get innovation going. But what kind of an innovation do we want? I only focus on disruptive ones. We only undertake innovations that have never been done before, and therefore maybe some of them will be surprising. But we have a very clear focus. Be positive. When we're in Patagonia and you look at these incredible forests, what's the greatest biodiversity you can see in this forest? The greatest biodiversity is the yeast. We're looking at more than 3,000 varieties of yeast in that forest. So which business are you in? Are you in the business of wood, in water, or are you in the yeast business? Let me tell you, Heineken thinks it's yeast, huh? And now we have the largest laboratories collecting the incredible yeast varieties through what's called a yeast safari. Have you been on a yeast safari in the forest? I mean, you have a forest. You can organize safaris if you want to. But what is yeast all important about? Without yeast, you don't have bread, you don't have beer, you don't have wine. Have you ever considered yourself as being the custodians of the yeast reserves of the world? I don't think so. You want to know the cash that is generated by yeast? You want to know what kind of $1 billion business that is? You're sitting on it, you're not even looking at it, because when you look at it, it's too small to notice. And this is where we are. We want to have you positive mindset, even though the news is bad in the morning. We want you to have the positive mindset and keep on focusing on what could be done. Like this one here. Every boat can run on seawater and on solar. Now when you know that this is the standard for the cruise ships, and I don't have to explain to you about the CO2 emissions and all of that, but when you know this is a standard, then please notice this is the alternative we've created. It's the first boat that goes around the world, and it's a boat that is solely working on solar, and with the solar energy we're taking the salt water, inject the electricity from the solar panels, produce hydrogen, and we've been around the world already. We're going for a second time. We're trying to show the world that you only need salt water and solar panels and know how to make hydrogen, because what's the byproduct when you're using hydrogen to power your engine? Water. Now, if you have power in water and you get salt water in the sun, what more do you need? Now, that's the kind of innovations we're going. We're going around the world for the second time now. We're now going through the time right now. This is not a Photoshop. This is a boat that exists. And what I think is important, it's disruptive, because you know in the Paris Agreement, the maritime industry got an exemption. They're not in the Paris Agreement. I mean, talking about lobbying, we got to congratulate us. I mean, this is lobbying at its best. You were able to extract yourself completely. But that's the kind of thinking we need. So let me talk about my first big example. Because this boat is not our biggest example. That's a teaser. You've been talking about regenerating forests, and Europe is increasing its forest reserves compared to others. But what about regenerating the forest of the sea? Have you ever thought about that? Because, let's be honest, there's 70% seawater, 30% land. Should we only focus on the land? Shouldn't we be focusing a little bit on the other things that are growing? And, you know, in the sea, they have one great advantage. They don't have to go against the law of gravity. That means all that lignin is much reduced. Now, talking about your pulping process, if you don't have lignin, it's make it a bit easier, right? I mean, all your crafting processes will be looking different. Science magazine in 2012 dedicated a full issue to the opportunities of regenerating the forest and the sea. We have projects around the world. We're pioneering this. But only 3 weeks ago, when there was the famous meeting COP23 in Bonn, somehow the American Department of Energy released a report saying that the future of energy in America is going to be seaweeds. Totally unnoticed in the media. Google it, you'll find it. And America believes that by 2020, 10% of its energy requirements will come from seaweeds. That went unnoticed in all these tweets and analyses. And why is President Trump subscribing this? For a very simple reason. He's sick and tired of the subsidies to Cargill and to ADM. Billions of dollars floating in converting corn into ethanol. Is that the way to go in the future? We know it is financially nonsense, but it has been the practice. So here we look at our platforms of how we regenerate farms in the sea, forests in the sea. Now the beauty is that if you have a diverse rainforest, you can go to generate 250 tons of biomass a year per hectare. We're doing 1,000 in the sea. Are we looking at competitive analysis? Are we looking at our strengths and weaknesses? Are we having a reflection of where can the biomass come from? Ladies and gentlemen, the sea is going to compete with the land because it's more competitive. And let's then ask ourselves, what is it going to be used for? Well, just like you are looking at multiple new technologies to generate higher value, the same is happening with the seaweed industry. But the biggest market is going to tackle is going to be the shale gas market. You know shale gas? The fracking of the underground with chemicals to release. I mean, it's not the most environmental one, but it is the driver of the American economy at the moment. Look at the costing. Seaweed is 10 times cheaper. I put that big word on the screen before and said positive. If you are mad and uncomfortable and feel like joining Greenpeace because you don't want the soils to be fracked with chemicals, then I'm saying think again. Work out a much more competitive model. The change in the world will not come because we protest and we're against. The change in the world will happen when we have competitive models that will out-compete. And that is the new force that I'm discovering. Seaweeds are going to be part of the food chain, the fuel chain, and the textiles chain. Guess what? In China, 2 million tons of seaweed are already converted into towels. Did you notice? I mean, I know that you have lyocell, I know that you have other technologies in order to make fibers, but keep in mind, the market shifts a lot. And many traditional analysts, they don't see what's happening in completely different sectors that are not even on the radar. Let me share with you our biggest regeneration of forest project we've done. We're in Colombia. And this forest is being regenerated in order to produce fuel. Say, fuel? What do you mean? Yeah, we produce fuel. How do we do that? Well, first of all, let me say where we are. We're right there in the Vichala, next to the Orinoco River. We started 30 years ago, and we've now regenerated 8,000 hectares of tropical rainforest in an area that looked like this. The Spaniards destroyed it 250 years ago because they wanted to try cattle farming. This is an area where we, I'm so sorry for if you're Spanish, I mean, absolutely, I should have said the colonizers, and then you would have known who he was. This was the largest project in the world in 1984 with mycorrhizal fungus. We started planting, we planted 11,000 hectares with mycorrhizal fungus. 84. That's early. We have a 92% survival rate, and we've been able to change the pH of the soil from 4 to 6.8. Never put on any chemical. Never. It is a natural process that we engendered, but we understand that in order to regenerate this forest, with that kind of a density, you need to have a way of welcoming biodiversity. A monoculture cannot do that. But we started with a monoculture, because the monoculture of the pine tree, the Pinus caribe, was the only one that would withstand the heat and the harshness of 9 months of drought, with the mycorrhizal fungus, of course, helping them to survive. That is now the most biodiverse rainforest that's ever been regenerated. We have 256 different plant species. That equals the Amazon forest plant species diversity. Human beings can regenerate, but regenerating for what? Well, we're tapping the trees and we're getting out the colophon. But in order to produce the colophon, some of you are chemists, you know that you need some vapor, and your byproduct is turpentine. All the cars in our region operate on turpentine. Purified turpentine, which we actually blend with vegetable oils. And so we have a biodiesel that never needed methanol in order to generate the transesterification. We're the only project in the world that has fuels from trees without transesterification. We blend turpentine with oil. And we're having only 25,000 cars running today, but it is nevertheless the largest project ever. And we think it is inspiring. This is our fuel production center. Everything is done locally. We don't do anything externally. Now, I just want to say, when you plant a forest, the first thing, of course, you get some products out of it. But the second thing you get is these byproducts. And the third one is this water. 70% of the local population when we started suffered from gastrointestinal diseases. Today, none. And every child that reaches the age of 6 in our community gets a bicycle to ride. Now, what do you think happens when kids have a bicycle to ride and drink water 3 liters a day for free? Well, they're so healthy that we close the hospital for lack of patients. You want to get sustainable development going? That's the kind of way to go. Now, most of the time we think the hospitals is a need. No, the hospital means that you still have too many unhealthy people. We eradicated diabetes in the zone, and we got the statistics to prove it. We got the United Nations flying in to say, what happened here? Well, what happened is we regenerated the forest, we have biodiversity, we have drinking water, and guess what? We have full employment. When people are happy and healthy, they play music instruments, not guns. Part of my work is to translate all of that into children's stories, because what I present to you, to many people, will sound like fantasy. What I'm actually doing is I'm transcribing reality into fantasy. Because our real base is reality. It's been done. Just like with our cup of coffee. Every cup of coffee turns into clothing for us. Drink it and wear it. Who knows the program? You drink a cup of coffee, and with the waste of your coffee trash, the mat cafe, with that waste, we put it into polyethylene. But let's not forget, coffee has a very unique lignocellulose. It is semi-carbonated and fully fermented. Now that's nature's process. Now that technique has already been done thanks to the geometry of coffee. And the geometry of coffee allows us to have a chemical, biochemical, that is odor controlling, it absorbs your body odor, fast drying, saves energy drying, and has UV protection, which what you normally will have to do with zinc oxides or titanium oxides. We do it with coffee, after you have your cup of coffee. Isn't it amazing that we can use the waste of coffee, which is lignocellulosic, by the way, and I think you know that market very well. We use that waste of the coffee to farm mushrooms, the waste of the mushrooms given to the chickens or the dog. Then we can blend the waste of the coffee into the clothing, into the carpets. We can put it into MDI. We can turn it into foams for making polyurethane that are also absorbing odors. And now we're putting into paints. Have you ever thought of coffee like that? Now let me ask you the question, what is the world market price for coffee? It's about $500 a ton. If it's organic and fair trade, it's $800 a ton. How much do you think the farmer is getting in our case? $3,750 a ton. Are you interested to go threefold, fourfold? Or would you like to stick to your $500, $600 a ton? Absolutely not. We don't want it anymore. We want the value added. Now, if we can do it with coffee, what more can we do? And here comes a little snag in there. I discovered it only a couple of weeks ago myself. It's a complete new program dealing with coffee. And the coffee, we all know the coffee very well. We have roasted coffee. But originally there was a green bean. So we have a new program with Melita. Oh, You remember Melita? We thought Melita was kind of going out of the market, right? I mean, because we now have these Nespresso machines or Sensei machines, and we don't need it anymore. But here it is. A Melita with an NFC code in it. You know what it means, concretely? That we are having a Melita filter, we're adding a little strip on the top of it, we are putting in the green coffee, we put in the chip, and now we have a disposable pouch. You know coffee, how it is transported when it has been roasted? I mean, that's laminated aluminum with polyethylene, high-density polyethylene on the inside, PVC on the outside. I mean, it's a mess. But we love the coffee, so we tolerate it. But here is what the machine is doing. That's at the farm. At the farm, we're putting in the chip, in the NFC, we're putting the program to know exactly what's the profile of the coffee that goes in there. How should it be roasted? And now we're putting that into a machine that will roast, grind, and brew your coffee. And the trick of the whole management of the supply chain, from the coffee harvested to the cup roasted, is done with an NFC chip on a Melita filter. How many Melita filters do you think we're needing for doing this? Billions of filters. How much big data are we collecting? This machine is collecting more big data than anyone could have imagined in the paper industry before. The Melita filter, that little piece of paper that we thought was on the way out, is now on the way in, but as a mobilizer of big data. It was not Melita who came up with that, but Melita is a key partner. I know that when you're ready to move out of your B2B and ready to venture in your B2C, with these kind of examples, Melita filter actually becomes the broker of the big data. They are brokering the big data because they're the carrier. And it's a carrier. You know the cost of an NFC on a Melita filter? It's less than 10 cents. The cash investment versus the big data accumulated, no one has ever had so much data. And if we know that at the same time big data is reinventing itself because the internet is reinventing itself. You thought you had a Wi-Fi connection, and if you're already signed up for your 5G, think again. 5G is all technology. The new technology is exactly this. Every light bulb can be transformed into a satellite. That's the technologies we're going to have. Now that is why the Melita filter is so important, because that machine links with a light. Every light bulb, every single light bulb that we see can perform everything that a satellite does today. If you think it's fantasy, it's already done. We're doing it. As you can imagine, we have a bit of opposition. There's some people who don't like the idea too much. If you're a Cisco and you're thinking about selling routers, you don't like the idea that the light bulb becomes a router. And that is part of the game. The new technology is called Wi-Fi. Who knows Wi-Fi? Who has Wi-Fi at home? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the future. This is sensing the future. What is happening? You remember from school what is fastest in the world? Light or sound? I think we all agree light is the fastest. I mean, that's the whole basis of Einstein. So, why did we decide to have satellite connections over radio waves when you can have it with light connections right in your home? It's a kind of surprise that these smart people of Google and Amazon didn't think about that. So the new technology is there, and there are 14 billion light points outside. Every single light point outside becomes a satellite connection. It means that I can do geolocalization. I can position perfectly. I can position perfectly where you are. Because you remember geometry and the error of geometry. If you have to do a GPS, that means you're going to have to go 40 kilometers up this way, and another GPS 40 kilometers satellite connection up there. What's your margin of error? Well, about 10 meters, if you're connected all the time. What is your margin of error when you have light there, and a cell phone here? Not even a centimeter. Are we ready to rethink GPS and geolocation. I mean, you're using satellites in your forest, right? Maybe it's about time you put some light bulbs up. Maybe you start rethinking the contract with the satellite service providers because they are charging a lot of money. You can do exactly the same with a wetland. A little wetland can do that. Did I miss this one? Let's go to soccer, football. This is, you know where we are? Barcelona. And now Messi is going to take a penalty. And we're all ready with our cameras. And we take the picture. Oh, too bad you can't send it for another hour. Our telecommunication systems can't cope with 90,000 people wanting to send a picture at the same time. Try over Christmas to send a happy new year, a happy Christmas to anyone. It doesn't work. Our satellite system is clogged. In this stadium, we can put 100,000 little wetlands. You know, the little ones? Every wetland has its own ISP. And we can create a broadband internet connectivity that's 205 times faster than 5G. And that means Messi scores, 100,000 people, boom, send them the video. Live, broadcasted. You know what it is in advertising money? You created a complete new channel of advertising. There's nothing to see with everything else. Sky TV, goodbye. We're going to do it differently because you're going to have to take everyone's phone away. That's not going to work. So what we're seeing is complete new media. But when you're in a metro, have you ever tried to do a bit of GPSing in the metro? I mean, I wish you good luck. Try. You're probably not going to find a way. You're going to have to get out of the metro, try it again, and go back in. Now, with the lights, we can give you 1 centimeter precise. La Défense in Paris is already equipped. Anne Hidalgo will inaugurate in March with blind people, with the visually impaired, walking through the metro, and the only thing they have is light and their telephone. 1 centimeter precise. This is the new model. Now, if you can do that with one blind person in a metro, what can you do with a tree? I can see on every treetop of all your plantations a little red lamp. One little lamp that's a little diode with a little battery underneath will shine and will communicate for 10 years. Are we talking about transformation? Do you sense the change that is occurring, if this is ever possible? But we have the visually impaired already doing it. We're testing it. We're there. Now, if you can make a blind person walk through La Défense, 4 different levels in Paris, what else can you do? Well, you can guide just about anyone. And that's what we need. We need to see how we can transform. Our GPS system in the store is of absolute no use. But if you have a Wi-Fi, I can tell you where the pasta is. I can tell you where the recycled paper is. And just like Google is making you pay to put your listing on there, it can tell you where is all the recycled paper. And you know exactly which store it is. And it guides you to go there. And then you have these self-driving cars of Google. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not impressed. We're creating self-driving cars actually that work over the LED lamps. 2 cars communicating to each other. Do you sense the change? Do you get an idea what it all means in how we generate our data? And how you find your parking space, and how you come into the parking, and the Wi-Fi will tell you where there is a space. No need anymore to do this ridiculous driving around. What is happening is that public light becomes your backbone. That's the backbone of your information. Now, do you remember big data? Who owns big data? The one who owns the transmission lines owns the big data, and the one who owns the server. Now, if it is public light, who owns that? If it is your light, who owns that? Big data becomes your data. You have a complete redivision of data, thanks to this technology that can penetrate your office. Now, and by the way, it has no radio waves, so it is very healthy. No insomnia, you can sleep very well. We have to think about health, environment, speed, innovation, and we can see how it actually transforms what we do. And next time you buy a computer, the computer will be bought with your lamp along with it, because the lamp is your connection to the internet. because we'll have a special key for you, just for you. This is the kind of innovation that we're looking at. But some are much simpler. You know, I was president of an organization that was making detergents and surfactants. Talking about 1991. And I was actively producing biodegradable soaps. And we were producing special surfactants for the paper recycling. Because we need to get this ink off, right? And so we were producing this. Now, what I didn't know when I developed this company and our biodegradable alternatives, it was made from palm oil. And as you all know very well, even what the palm oil industry is trying to tell us that it is sustainable, I don't know how you can make something sustainable that is standing on a spot where the rainforests were before. I mean, I wish Mr. Paul Pullman a lot of luck with his efforts with Unilever and his roundtable for sustainable palm oil, but it's a challenge. Now again, don't be negative, don't go against. What's the alternative? And the alternative is indeed very simple. There are 8 factories in Brazil. That's the market leader because they're the biggest orange juice producers in the world. But at the same time, anyone at home, when you press juice, you can just take 1 kilogram of peels of your citrus, 1 liter of water and 7 spoons of sugar, and 3 weeks later you have your own surfactant with which you can skim off the ink from your recycled paper. That's made with orange peels. It even smells like orange peels. Have you been to one of these recycling plants lately? It doesn't smell like orange at all. I mean, it smells like something else, and you know, it's whatever you want to do about it, it's not the most pleasant smell that you have ever had in your life. But this way, you can do it at home, you can test it. Again, it's one of these projects where we took reality and we translated it into fantasy. People don't believe it's possible. Our biggest obstacle today is that many times people don't believe it can be done. Can you imagine that? We're so much boxed in with our ideas that when we hear something that is so fantastic, we translate fantastic into fantasy. Instead of saying, how can we be part of that new reality? Perhaps one of the most fantastic projects I've been able to develop over the years is this project where weeds turn into biochemicals in food. Don't think this is small. This is the first Juncker project approved 2015, and that's ours. 2015, we were approved for turning something quite incredible into a portfolio of chemicals. Le chardon, thistles, il cardo, whatever language you want to talk about it, it's a weed. And you know what we normally have to do with it? We have to buy glyphosates and spray it. And you know what happens? It doesn't work. But it's mandated. So for the next 5 years we have to keep on spraying the same stuff. Except one small change. We're harvesting cardoon, or thistles, on the island of Sardinia, 360,000 tons. We're transforming the cardoon, the oil, with steam into azelaic and pelargonic acid for the chemists. That means we're turning into an acid that can either be a glyphosate substitute or it can be a raw material for bioplastics. We're making today the capsules for Lavazza solely out of coffee capsules, of course, solely out of cardoon, thistles. We're producing the elastomers, the lubricants, and here is the thistle's revenge. We're making the substitute for glyphosates. We're the only product today approved on the market that's a substitute for glyphosates. We can use it already in Belgium for potatoes. You know, for Belgium this is very important. Potatoes should be preserved and taken care of. And so Belgian potatoes now have the license and the permission to use our thistle-based product to spray as a herbicide. In France, of course, les vignes, we can apply it to the vineyards. Because who wants the Chateau Petrus with glyphosates in it? I mean, we just don't think that's a good idea. And in Italy, we're approved already for apples and pears, fruits. But our byproduct is a bacterial enzyme that grows in the flower. And so we've become the largest supplier of yeast to the Italian goat cheese market. Now let me be very honest with you. You start with a thistle, you're thinking go into lubricants and to bioplastics, and you end up by being a yeast producer for goat cheese. Are you prepared to cluster business? Or are you going to force yourself to continue core business? I'm submitting to you that the future of generating high value-added products is that you get out of a very tight, straight jacket that is called core business strategy. If you are and will, you will remain commodity and tough to survive. What we do know is that by having 7 products out of the thistle, which I can submit to you, the cost price of thistles is rather low. Actually, they pay you to harvest. Have you been paid lately for a harvesting trees? I mean, usually you get paid. So why don't we look together at how we're able to produce a multiple of value? Our multiple is around €3,800 per ton of thistles. 835 million invested, and what's perhaps more important, we've taken over the old E&I petrochemical facility in Porto Torres, Sardinia, and we turned it into the largest biorefinery of Europe. I know Borregaard in Norway is doing biorefineries. I know that the Finns are doing some biorefineries. I applaud it. Come and have a look at ours. We'll share. We'll give you the insights. Because we believe that bioeconomy, in the end of the day, is chemistry, it's fuel, high value-added products, and food. Because if you want to diversify, you're going to go for products and markets where there is a continuous demand, a stable demand. You don't want to go for these fluctuations of hula hoops. You want to go for stable markets because you come from a stable market. You want to go for market segments where you can see the long term, because there's nothing you can do about it. The trees indeed take a little bit more than the bacteria. But if you look at the integrated cash flow analysis, and that's not what the MBAs are taught at INSEAD and Fontainebleau, where I got my MBA. I mean, we need integrated cash flow analysis. Your look of the future is completely different. Actually, you will not be able to defend with your shareholders that you're not going for a cluster of products. And on top of that, our asset base. If you start with an asset that is considered to be a brownfield, and out of our cash flow, we can clean it up. What's the value of our corporation in 20, 25 years? And who is now your institutional investors going to join you? Are you also discussing that in your groups? Sensing the future? That's also knowing who are the investors I want in my shareholding, not just the investors I got. Because I'm sure that sometimes you wish another investor than the one you got. And we are in that exact same game. If you are an innovator, you have to be able to align what you think is the business opportunity with your existing asset base and align with that with your financing. And that is exactly where the innovation is not just the innovation of transforming one product into a bioproduct. The innovation is not substituting something with a bio thing. The innovation is transforming the business model. We are in need of transforming business models. And the most difficult thing to do is the transformation of the business models, because that means you're changing the rules of the game. And some other people will resist that change. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an incredible privilege in life that the Chinese government has decided that every fable that I write, which is this reality turned into fantasy, is made available to all children in China. I don't know why I deserve that. I'm the only foreign writer in China that is allowed to publish all his books, and I have now 144 already published in China. I'm Belgian. Of course I'm not published in Belgium. I'm not Hergé, I'm not Tintin, so you have to respect that Tintin is much better. But what I think is important in this game, if we want to be successful long term, sensing the future, it will not be possible unless you connect with the children. 50% of my time is spent with industry and policymakers, making clear that there are obvious new ways of generating massive value with what we have, surprisingly, positively, but the other 50% of my time is spent on this, with children. If you're not able to connect with the next generation, and that is not by internet or Wi-Fi, that's by telling them stories that inspire them, because the future seems so incredibly bright when they're able to get a sense of where it's all going to, then I think you will be able to transform your own business without any difficulties. Thank you.
Mikhail, have you got anything to share with us from your visual perspective in relation to Gunther's stories about coffee and light bulbs and other inspiring examples of disruptive innovation? Indeed. For our innovation, we do need indeed to think outside of the box, and following Gunther's example, possibly a box made of seaweed, indeed. What else have you got for us, Mikhail? Indeed. Coffee breaks may never be the same again, ladies and gentlemen. They'll be capturing big data on everything we do. What else have we got? It's an interesting future, as Gunther mentioned, if we can own the data rather than the data we need being owned. I would agree. That's an interesting one, yeah, coming with the orange peel again. Fruit's not our core business. No, the core is a different part of the fruit. Yeah, but it's what you mentioned, Gunther, about clustering, about the opportunity in the future lying in clustering.
Let me come a bit closer.
Yeah, please do. Thank you very much, Mikhail. Can we stop there for now? Can we have a round of applause for our clustering, please? So, just to take us forward to our three young researchers who are going to present later, I've got a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. First of all, you've given us some frankly powerful examples of disruptive innovation across a wide range of different geographical locations and industries. You've talked about how innovation is going to be in the transformation of business models. When you delivered that message, from my little hiding position over there, I noticed a certain amount of people in the audience nodding their heads in recognition of that. But let's bring it down to a very concrete level for the paper and pulp industry at a European level. Do you think, first, that the industry can seize the same value that you've been talking about in disruptive innovation? And if so, concretely how?
First of all, the industry is very much a commodity industry still. And so that's why the opportunity is so big. We often forget that every tree we produce has so many different components, but let me take you an example of a technology that we have been practicing now for about 25 years, a steam explosion. Who in the room practices steam explosion in your industries? 1, 2, 3, great. 4. Maybe you don't want to disclose that you're using the technology, that may be another reason, but if we give an example, people have been trying to make gas out of seaweeds for decades. And the industry and the science says, not very productive. And then comes a treatment with steam explosion, and we increase productivity by a factor 6. What do? Well, we hydrolyze outside of the digester. That means we dramatically increase the amount of hydrogen into the system, and then we put it into an anaerobic environment. And as a result, boom,
the seaweed becomes so productive that it out-competes a lot of other resources. And I think this is what is required in the industry. One needs to get outside of what you know today, but nevertheless within the industry there are quite a few technologies that are known, but they've been discarded. And they've been discarded because for that particular application at the time wasn't very useful. Seaweeds was actually considered to be, and was till the 70s, the best source for fertilizer. People were not thinking really that this was good for gas production. But the steam explosion opened up a complete new area. So what I'm basically saying is you need a matrix structure of innovation, the technology. You can't just go in a linear line and saying this is what we have, how can we get there? No, you need to create a very diverse matrix of the technologies you have, the diversities you have. And we know, for example, that in our Regeneration of Forest project in Colombia, it's only the Pinus caribe that could do it. No other tree could do it. And so, of course, even Greenpeace accused me of promoting monocultures. But the result is that you have a multiculture afterwards. If I look at how innovation is pursued, it's too much cause and effect. I have this, I want that. And then I'm looking for a line to get there. You know, if you're a sailor, you know that you never get to the other side in a straight line. You know, you gotta go where the wind is, you gotta go where the currents are. I mean, it just doesn't work in a straight line. And even though we rhetorically very often say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, yeah, but that's the theory. The practice is you gotta make a lot of turns, even if you don't want to make it. And I think that is what we're missing in innovation. So if the paper industry is willing to combine its forces and looks at all the resources you already have, including technologies which you have maybe even written off, you may find that for other applications, this is a breakthrough. But the precondition is you're ready to go for a cluster. You're not just looking at pulp. And I find that that's where I find a lot of your research initiatives, you know, to get into functional structures, to move into different sugars, to have foaming techniques, you know, to have all of that included. Well, yeah, that's great. You are looking at it, but try to be as crazy as looking at a thistle for goat cheese and substitute for glyphosates and making the chemicals to make elastomers and lubricants. I mean, are you ready to really navigate the center of opportunities? Because everyone else is encroaching in your market. Everyone else is encroaching in your market. You've got to encroach in other markets as well.
Okay, thank you, Gunther. The second question for you. We heard from Commissioner Molas before setting out what the European Commission is going to do in 3 ways to facilitate this industry as well as other industries in trying to capture innovation and value in the future. How do you evaluate the European Union's innovation strategy from your perspective?
Well, you know, I always like to hear politicians making these promises, and I think you know very well, very hard to make them hard. I mean, promises in events like this are wonderful, but when is it really, when is the buck on the table? And I think that we as an industry and as innovators, we need to call upon them to use their purchasing power. No messing around with all your ideas and budgets for this and budgets for that. Are you ready to buy, as the European Union, are you ready to buy a portfolio of innovative products and be the lead purchaser of this innovation?
So, Gunther, you're talking then about more or less that we're asking both the European institutions and also national governments to turn around and say, right, we want innovation.
Yeah.
So we're going to put in our public procurement preference
exactly.
for innovative products.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
And I'm saying, and you have so many common products for so many common uses, and they don't get traction in the market because it's always the same. It's chicken and egg. Who comes first? Well, tell the European Union, nice with all your sayings, but we would like to have a $500 million procurement budget from you guys, from the European Union, for our products. Whatever are our top 10 innovative products, we want procurement policy to support it and to get traction in the market faster.
Right, well, to any policymakers here present in the audience, please take note, update, and adapt and evolve your procurement strategy.
The Swedish government had a very interesting procurement policy revision that was headed by Anders Wijkman. And your next president seems to be a Swede?
Yes.
I don't have. Is he here? Ja, det var sunt. Oh, hej! Hej! Så, du känner Anders Wijkman förstås. Ja, visst. So, you talk to Anders Wijkman and the procurement policy. Let's make Sweden the top one like this. You need innovation purchased, not funded. That's how we speed up things on the market.
Maybe we could combine both. And we can have the funding I know industry needs and the purchasing to go.
I have nothing against the other one, but I know how slow they are. And therefore I'm not too motivated by it. I'm much more motivated because when there is a procurement with a specific indication of the innovation level from your industry, we know it translates into dollars into your cash flow. Now, that's more interesting.
An interesting reflection. Right, to close us off, and to bring afterwards our young researchers to the stage to show some examples from within your industry of the types of disruptive innovation you're talking about, innovative ideas for the industry to move forward and capture value. I shared with you last week the abstracts of the 3 winners of our Young Researchers Award. And I know you've seen them, and you've already mentioned them a little with the phone and other things today. To wrap up, what have you got to say to these young researchers? We both talked, I talked about my children before, you've talked about how young people of the future, and by the way, I want copies of your books for my kids, French or English, or Romanian kids. Anyway, with that in mind, what message have you got from these 3 young researchers? You've seen their abstracts, what have you got to say to them? We'll just start with you, actually. Let me introduce them to you. Please stand up, guys. First of all, can you give them a round of applause? Wanting to make them too emotional or nervous before they stand up to present to you. This is the future of innovation in your industry. They're going to show you what they've done and what they've created in a few minutes. But we talk about the need to innovate, the need to have innovative research. We're going to see it in a minute. So Gunther, to finish off on your side, what have you got to say to them?
Well, the most important is don't be too nice. Don't be too nice.
I fall into that trap right
You know, when you get awards, you tend to be very nice, but I think what we all need sometimes is people making us feel uncomfortable. Because when we feel uncomfortable, we have to reorganize our minds. And I think this is very important. We need the disruption, we need the creativity, and we need you to be blunt about what you think is possible. Irrespective, I mean, because as a researcher, you have an enormous degree of freedom. I mean, normally when they're in the company, they can't be so creative. They have to be a little bit less creative, to be a bit more subordinated to the 5-year plans and the budgets and so on. But if you're in your position, you don't have that. So use that freedom as long as you can get.
Thank you very much.